Welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Barone. Get ready to hear moments that will help you to see the world differently and inspire you to become the happiest, healthiest, and kindest version of you. Welcome, everyone. You all look amazing. You all look so beautiful. Whose idea was it to put 100 hormonal women in one room? I do not know, but we need help. And I'm going to dig into this topic in just a moment. I want to say a huge thanks to our sponsors first and foremost, Pukka Tea, and I am a tea fanatic. So it was a bit of a dream come true for me to have them come on board as a sponsor. And of course, Fem21, and the founder of Fem21 is speaking with us tonight. So it's going to be extra special to be able to talk about her incredible product that helps so many people. Now, for those who don't know, I am Maritza Barone. I've been doing the Things You Can't Unhear podcast for about 6 years. Next month, it's the sixth year. It's the most consistent thing I've done in my entire life, apart from my marriage and my children. Usually it's a 2-year lifespan for me with any project that I start. But this has been something that I've really stuck to because I'm eternally curious. And I think I chose the title of the podcast perfectly when I chose the Things You Can't Unhear moment. It's those moments in life where you're like, hang on a minute, that just stopped me in my tracks. I need to move differently. I need to think differently now because I heard that piece of information. And I'm all about empowering us with knowledge and learning new ways for us to say, I can have more control in my life just by doing something a little bit different, or not taking that first piece of advice that I got, taking another step to find out what is actually going on with me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is. So that's why we're here. And there's so many beautiful faces that I recognize, so many that I don't. But obviously Melbourne is my hometown. I grew up here. I have since moved about 3 or 4 years ago. It's lovely to be back here in Melbourne and being able to share this with all of you tonight too. It's funny because I know a lot of you, including myself, are going through a hormonal shift in my life, and that's when I started questioning a few things. And I'm looking at a friend of mine at the back and we're just like, I've got this pain and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me and I just can't get to the bottom of it. And we're just questioning and not being able to find answers. And why I invited the 2 speakers that I have here today is because I know that they help us beyond what we usually hear. Nat pushes the status quo. She never just lets that standard answer come into play. She's like, but why, but why, but why, but why? So she's going to be absolutely amazing for us to be able to gain the knowledge that we need. And of course, Meah has been a dedicated naturopath for many, many years, and she knew what she wanted to do from the age of 15, and that was help women and help people be healthier. So let's welcome them out here and begin our conversation. Please join me in welcoming Nat and Meah to the stage. Come on up, ladies. Come and take a seat. Thank you so much. Here we go. Turn your mics on so everyone can hear you. Well, welcome, Nat. Welcome, Meah.
Thank you
for having you can't unhear. We're so pleased to have you on board. Like I was talking about just before you came out, there's so many of us that are experiencing new things, and it's whether we are going through that perimenopausal, menopausal age, if we're in our 30s and not even thinking about it yet, or even if we're in our 60s and 70s and we've passed it and we're like, hang on, what happened back in the summer of 69 when I went a little bit crazy? Like what happened to me back then? I'm just going to reflect back on that moment a little bit. I think we can all learn, no matter what age we are, more about our hormones and what's going on in our lives. Would you agree?
It never stops. It never, ever stops. And I think it gets to a point where we're like, I don't need to worry about that anymore. And then you have another hot flush and you're like, I thought I was beyond this. So it doesn't ever stop. And I think what I really want people to understand tonight is that looking at your history is very important as to where you are now and why you're seeing what you're seeing now, and you can utilise that to move forward.
Yes, you were saying that when people come in to see, and I want to talk a little bit about what are you seeing at the moment of who's coming in? Because you say you're always asking people, no matter what age they are, to tell you about their period. And if they don't have a period,
Still ask them about their period and how it was.
And what it was like.
So I think that doesn't change. The mechanism of what causes period problems if you don't treat it, doesn't change. And even if you're not menstruating anymore and you haven't menstruated for many years, I still say, what was it like? I still want that information. It still helps me to craft a diagnosis and a treatment plan because you likely haven't changed. So speaking to that part of you is very important. It gives you tools, it gives you information. And if you have daughters, it also gives your daughters information that's very, very useful as well. So looking at the family line becomes very important. So never at any point can you think, I don't need to worry about that anymore, because health is, it's unfortunately is a constant work that we need to put in, an effort that we need to put in. But the more you do that, the less of an effort it actually has to be.
And I think your period is really like a report card for your health. So what's going on with your cycles, what's going on hormonally is a reflection of what's happening with the rest of your body. And understanding what's going on with the rest of your body and what those signs and symptoms are telling you is really empowering. Knowledge is power, so we can understand our bodies better and make modifications based on that.
Speaking of being able to make modifications, and we will talk about Fem21 right now because I think it's an important time to speak about it. You have been a naturopath for many, many years and took it upon yourself to create a product that would help people in this situation, because when we will talk about this, not everyone wants to go down the path where they're taking pills or doing other medication. They want to go down a natural route. And for me personally, I like to try the natural route first, and if that doesn't work, then I'll look at other options, and whatever works for everyone else is all fine. But that's how I usually like to roll. So what made you decide to put this together, this superfood?
Well,
magical blend.
So we're just celebrating our 10th birthday this month, which is a bit crazy.
So exciting. That's so exciting.
10 years ago, I was working in women's health, doing a lot of fertility, seeing similar issues. I mean, women's health, I would say, is complex. And there's not...
You laugh now?
It's an understatement.
It's complex. So the solution is not always simple, and it's different for everyone. We all come with our own different set of genetics, our own different life, our own different, diets and environments that we're living in, and different stress levels, different levels of support, children, no children, yada, yada, yada. And at the time of creating Fem21, I was having a lot of my own hormonal issues. I have PCOS. I was off the back of having 2 children, breastfeeding, had the marina in. I was looking after women in a fertility clinic, but really ignoring my own stuff going on, but knew it. And I was just like, I'm not a priority right now. And that's okay. We all go through these different phases. And so I got to a point where I was like, I really need to be a priority and put myself first and sort myself out. And so I just started on that journey. I got the marina out and then started taking my own advice essentially, and then formulated a blend of herbs and superfoods and things that I was prescribing in practice for a variety of different reasons, for hormones, for gut health, for liver, for adrenals, to get rid of inflammation. And I was like, well, if this can sort me out, I'm sure it can help a lot of people. And so that's kind of how it was born, and it just grew from there.
I've seen your little Instagram reel the other day of the life of a small business owner and all the hats that you wear to make this happen. Yeah. And it's intense, right?
It's a juggle. Yeah. It is a juggle. But I think, it's not always like that, right? Like we move through different phases where life is really busy, and other times where we're slowing down more so, and that's okay. It's just knowing where you're at and how you can support yourself in the best possible way.
So you're both very much advocates of natural health, which is great. Tell everyone your story of growing up and how you were raised, because you were never given an option to go down any other path, really, were you?
No, but I love what I do. So I'm very happy. Yeah. I was born into the right family, I guess. But my upbringing is kind of nuts. I'm originally from Cairns, North Queensland. This is like my 3rd time to Melbourne in my life. So definitely a fish out of water. I was saying to that, I'm like, oh, my God, teaching your daughter to drive in this city, holy crap. Yeah. But anyway, so born and bred in Cairns. my parents were quite alternative. So my dad was a chiropractor. My mum was a nutritionist. My dad was a raw foodie, which meant that he never ate anything processed, anything cooked. We're full vegetarians. I've been a vegetarian since day dot. Never took any medication, like ever. Like no Panadol, nothing. It was like if I went for a sleepover at a friend's house, I was drilled about what I ate every meal when I got home. There was like no sugar, no processed foods in the house. Every day after I came home from school, Mum forced me to drink a carrot, apple and celery juice. And so much so that the beta carotene turned my skin orange. And I was getting teased for peeing on my hands. Meah the peer.
Oh, no.
But anyway, I can laugh about it now.
Just a nervous twitch afterwards.
Mind you, I did have a carrot juice at the airport today, so I haven't been completely traumatised.
You're not glowing yet. It's okay.
Yeah, cool. Good. So, yeah, it was really alternative, like very food focused. And that was great. I started working at a health food store because my parents were like regulars there in Smithfield on the Northern Beaches of Cairns when I was like 14 and 7 months or whenever you could start working, 9 months or whatever it is. Anyway, it's not important. And I met a naturopath that was working there and I was like, wow, you're like an angel. You're helping all these people and you know, just utilising all these great remedies in the shop and helping them with their diet. And I was seeing people come in like month after month buying their supplements. I was cleaning shelves and reading all the things about supplements and talking to her about food. And of course I had all the food stuff in the background and I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. And I haven't veered from that path.
That's amazing. I always used to get so jealous of people who knew what they wanted to do from day dot. And obviously you did, and you've just followed through and you're still so passionate about it.
Yeah, love
keep
it.
evolving.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Such a great industry to work in.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just probably what I was meant to do. I'm a helper, a healer. I'm not anything else.
Yeah. And your amazing career, let's just talk about your amazing career as well. You've got one of the leading natural health clinics in Australia. So Nat runs and started the Pagoda Tree. I don't know if anyone's been to the Pagoda Tree. Show of hands if you have. There's a few, yep. We've got some clients here. So tell us about when that all started and your passion behind becoming the hormone revolutionist, as you're very well known.
Well, I never chose any of it. I had a not too dissimilar upbringing, although I moved away from that and because I feel like every teenager and young person, it's like a rite of passage to go and eat KFC every day when your mum never let you have it.
Yeah.
And so I was studying health science. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was coming towards the end of that and I was like, this has just been an absolute waste of my time. Thought I was applying to naturopathy, got the letter of acceptance in the mail and it was Chinese herbal medicine, not Western herbal medicine. I was like, oh, all right, looks like we're taking this path then. And so arrived at uni on my first day with absolutely no idea what that even was. I remember 3 weeks into the course ringing my mum and saying, this is not for me. These people are not my people. And she said to me, just stick it out. I don't think 3 weeks is enough. I think you're in, I think you're in it and you should give it a good go. So I ended up graduating. I spent a lot of time as a professional student, opened up the Pagoda Tree, and just as luck had it, I don't know that that's a fair thing, but nobody graduated at the same time. There was 3 of us that graduated and everybody else went on to continue to study Chinese medicine because they changed the curriculum and the rules. So it meant that we came out and there was no one graduating in Melbourne at least, and we had this opportunity to and because that's all you did at that point in time. You never worked for anybody. No one gave you an opportunity to work at their clinic. That wasn't even a thing. The only opportunity you ever had was to work on a cruise ship, probably treating people for feeling seasick as an acupuncturist. So we opened the clinic and, it was just very interesting. What I am good at is I'm good at listening. I would never say that I'm the most skilled acupuncturist. I'm not. I'm not the most skilled herbalist either, even though that's what I do. I am very good at listening and I'm very good at explaining to patients and getting them on board to understand what we're going to do and making sure that they understand that. I think that's what my skill is.
That is obviously, in my opinion, the thing that is lacking at the moment is doctors not listening.
I get goosebumps.
Yeah.
So I was asking a lot of questions. Patients were asking me a lot of questions and I was asking questions back. And really what happened was we started treating women, and at the time there was no one really treating fertility alternatively. There was nobody asking questions why women weren't falling pregnant. There was nobody asking questions why they even had fertility issues, period pain, ovulation pain, whatever it was. So I just got curious. It wasn't anything I ever learned. I studied gynecology at school, but it was probably as far as period pain and irregular cycles. That would have been kind of it. And we started, I just remember saying to patients, I've got no idea what I'm doing, but let's give this a try and we'll see what happens. And asked for permission to practice, because I didn't know. And we had some great results, which really put the name of the clinic on the map. And then we just grew exponentially. And I did not have the infrastructure. I did not have the staff. It was just a time. Like, it was a real time. And I was young, so that really put things on the map. And then from there, we were just able to go, we rode the wave is what we've done. We've ridden the wave, and I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know why that's us. And I feel like we do that a lot. It's not something that's conscious. I don't think, how do I ride this wave? But we tend to be at the front of it, which can be very lonely and at times controversial. But that's really, I think, what has allowed us to continue to, write books and podcasts and TV series and all the things that we've been able to do over the years, because I'm just not afraid to give it a go, I guess, at the end of the day. I'm not afraid to try and help someone where nobody else has been able to solve their problems, or they felt like they've had their back turned on them. We're either the first point of call or the last point of call for a lot of people, especially then. It's like, you're my first resort because, I don't know if I've got fertility issues, or you're my last resort because I've been through everything and I still haven't been able to have a baby. And then from there, now I don't just see fertility. In fact, I don't see that much fertility anymore. I see a lot of young women, teen health, and I see a lot of perimenopausal and menopausal women. So now it's vast. It's, from children actually right through to postmenopausal women.
And what I love about you is you're not afraid to push against the norm and piss people off. She pisses people off all the time on her Instagram.
Good on you,
all
Nat.
the time.
That's it. That's
She's
all
like,
them. It's not me.
She starts by
just a
saying,
messenger.
this is going to piss quite a few people off. So, and that's okay, because sometimes you need to hear it in different language to make sure it hits, right? So I was a bit of a human guinea pig, and I went to the doctor recently and I had all my bloods done hormonally. I wanted the full experience. It was a women's clinic.
Was it an experience? Is that what you're having?
Yes, it was having an experience. And to give them a lot of credit, they really sat me down and asked me loads of questions, and I felt heard. I felt like I got everything out, which was amazing. Had my bloods done, got the results back. Estrogen was sort of normal and progesterone was a little bit low, but nothing major was showing. She said to me, I've got two options for you. I don't think you're going to like either of them, because we'd spoken. I think she got my vibe. And she said, your options are, and these are the only two options, to go on a low dose pill, which is fine. I'd been on the pill for a million years and I don't really want to go back on the pill. So that wasn't an option for me, or to go on antidepressants.
For your estrogen, your progesterone.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't see why I would be going on antidepressants. And she said, well, it will get you through that rage period, that PMSy. Oh, everyone's laughing. Everyone's very rageful. It will get you through that period. And she said, if you like, you can only take it for 2 weeks and then take it for those 2 weeks leading up to your period. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what's the plan for that? The plan was try that for a year and then see what happens. And I said, I don't really, neither of those sort of really resonate for me right now. Is there anything else? She said, well, there's HRT, but that won't be effective on you at this point. I was like, okay, anything else? That's it. Okay. Okay. So I walked out and I was like, well, I don't really have any other solutions.
Started out good.
It did. It really, it started out really hopeful. And I was heard, which was great because that felt amazing. But I did feel like a big whinger by the end of it. Like by the time I was like, oh, my shoulder hurts and I can't get to sleep and my neck and my back. No, it's just like, all those things that we're complaining about, which sounds like it's complaining. What I want to hear from you guys is what are the other options if we don't want to take those 2 or potentially 3 options that are given to us at this point? Who wants to go first?
Well, I mean, you probably know what I'm going to say, which
21.
is, well, start natural first. Start with your diet, your lifestyle, your environment. Start with doing the things that you can do naturally which can actually make a big difference, like getting proper sleep, exercising. If you're struggling to sleep properly because you're having hot flushes or you're feeling anxious, then focus on that. Maybe take some magnesium or do some meditation before you go to bed, or have a warm bath or a sauna, or do some of these lifestyle things that can prioritize those foundations for your health, like sleep, move your body, exercise. Weight training is really one of the best things that you can do as a woman in your 40s to help your hormonal health, like as you transition through perimenopause and menopause. Clean up your environment in terms of chemicals and endocrine disrupting, phthalates and, BPA, plastics and fragrance and those things that we unwittingly being exposed to, bring some awareness to that. Make sure you're hydrated, drink plenty of water a day, eat organic where you can, make healthy choices, eat as close to nature as possible. Do all of those foundations, focus on that first. And if you're like, I don't have time, then it's like you've got to really prioritize yourself now, because you'll never have time. Like there'll always be something else that will come first. And if you don't put yourself first, then who's going to hold it all together? And there's a lot of natural things that you can do, like nutritional medicine, herbal medicine. There's lots of great modalities out there, and everybody's different. There's not one solution that's going to fit everyone. So you really need to talk to somebody that listens and can hear you and has experience in that area to then say, okay, well, in your circumstance, you're going to actually do really well with this, that, or the other, and formulate an individualized plan for you. Or, do your own research, look at, what your contributing factors are. I mean, Google's such a great thing. Everything is figure outable when it comes to the access to information these days. So I think that we've got the opportunity to take back control of our health and our outcomes, and don't be scared, to do it. Just like start with the basics and build from there.
And even if you do choose to do the medication, still doing all of that stuff is going to obviously help as well, right?
And look, medication can be really helpful. It can make a big difference in how people are feeling. Like in the perimenopausal phase, like estrogen's really high. It's not it's not getting balanced out by progesterone because we're having short luteal phases or we're not ovulating regularly. And progesterone's plummeting while estrogen's still like 3 times higher in our 40s than when it is in our earlier stages in life. So we've got this cumulative estrogen, and we need to do something to help get the balance back. Progesterone can be really helpful. And if you're looking at, progesterone promoting things like, wild yam cream or B6 or magnesium or zinc, all of those things can be helpful naturally. And then if you're still in a place 6 months later where you're feeling like my estrogen's not being opposed, then, do some bioidentical progesterone, and that should help get you through those, anxious moments and those times where your nervous system's really rattled. And, that's a huge thing when it comes.
What is that? Can you explain what that is a little bit
more
to us who don't understand?
Sorry. And I'm sure Nat's going to add to this because, we talk about this so much in our practice, is your adrenal health and regulating your cortisol levels and how much of an effect that stress hormone has on progesterone, robs the body of progesterone, which is what we need when we're going through that perimenopausal phase. And I guess to get the definitions right, perimenopause is up until your last period. And then menopause is 12 months no period. So perimenopause is like this high estrogen, low progesterone state typically. And menopause is a low estrogen, low progesterone state.
Interesting.
So it's different. So you can't lump it all in the same category. You move through different phases. It's like reverse puberty, where hormones are fluctuating and changing until you then transition into a new phase. And your brain is changing at that time. Like your neural networks are completely changing and adapting to your hormones in this new phase in life. And so we need our stress hormone, cortisol, to be managed well. So our adrenals aren't like running super high up here or super fatigued and not functioning at all. And so finding that happy medium where our adrenals are supported and our cortisol's in a healthy window will then make a big difference to what's going on hormonally, but also with all the other systems of our body that's affected by stress, our gut health, our immune health, our, hair falling out, like a whole bunch of stuff. I could rave on. Sorry, I'm not letting you talk.
So much fun being a woman.
But yeah, your adrenal health and managing your cortisol is so important. So whatever it takes to do that, exercise again, sleep properly, like all of those stress management techniques really help.
Okay, now over to you. What advice would you have given?
I mean, the first thing I want to say is I'm constantly perplexed by how we disregard doing all of those things. So a patient will come and say, oh, you know what, when I exercise, I sleep properly, my nutrition's dialed in, I take care of myself, I feel better. But if I don't do those things, I don't feel good. And I'm like, yes. Like you can't out-supplement that. But to your point of going to the doctor and then being given these options, the problem I see is that what you're going for isn't there's not a druggable solution for what you're experiencing. And I am really of a firm belief that if women knew this information and started to scaffold their health from their younger years, then we wouldn't be in this position. I actually am very concerned about how quickly HRT is handed out without any regard for any of the things that you've spoken about, without looking at where hormones are at, without testing where hormones are at. And it's not to say it's a this or that. There are a lot of people that can't take HRT and there are a lot of people that don't want to take HRT or birth control. And I'm concerned that in years to come, just like we know birth control causes a whole lot of other issues, are we going to be in this same position going, oh, damn it, I was on HRT for many, many years and now we're finding XYZ. I don't know. I don't have the answers, but that's not what I do. So I help women who don't want to take it or can't take it be able to live their best life throughout their perimenopausal and menopausal years. And to me, again, your hormones are supposed to decline, and whether or not, it's not an argument of should you or shouldn't you take HRT, that's a personal decision. But I don't think we're designed to have higher levels of hormones forever and a day until we die. Like
100% agree.
Right? Like it's just not how we're designed. So I heard Stephen Bartlett had Dr. Stacey Sims on Diary of a CEO, and she talked about this. She said, why are we calling it hormone replacement? It's hormone therapy. You are actually supplementing hormones, but at what point do you stop doing that? And the problem for me is we're not looking at the discrepancies, like to your point, Meah, that, estrogen's high, progesterone's low. But actually I find if I can help women regulate their estrogen, and that is fibre, which is Fem21, and also Embody that we've created as well, if we can actually dial in gut health, look at the liver health, look at the bowels. If you're not pooing every day, start there. Absolutely start there. If that's the only thing you hear tonight is that you need to poo every day. And so just these little things, it's these little signs that we are very quick to take a medication. And you know what I see with patients? They're on HRT, but they've still got insomnia. They're still gaining weight. They're still anxious. And often they're adding estrogen to a body that's already estrogen dominant. So it's really dialing it in. And I know that's hard to hear. But it is really getting that individualized approach and you've got access to everything that you need. There's no perfect way. It's just your way. But as long as you're feeling good. So how is it that you can wake up every day and go, that was an awesome sleep? And then that was an awesome poo. When's the last time you went to the toilet and you were like, yes, I loved that. That was felt so good. That's what it's supposed to feel like. You're not supposed to be on there for 45 minutes. And you're supposed to go every day, if not multiple times a day. So I have issues with what we've been taught, and I have issues with the lack of understanding of an individual before we prescribe things. And we really need to be, to your point, I spend far more time focusing on women's cortisol than I do anything else. If I can get that piece right, because their symptoms are pronounced when their cortisol levels are high. Someone will say, I haven't had hot flushes for 5 years, but all of a sudden I'm having hot flushes again. And I'll say, well, what's happening in your life? Oh, yeah, my son's, going through something, or I've moved house, or whatever it is. It's just proportionate to your stress levels. Your symptoms are always proportionate to your stress levels. So I spend far more time regulating that than anything else. And then what happens as we do that is, especially to your point also, our hormones are temperamental when we're going through puberty. I think everyone can relate to that, right? They're not robust. They're not built out as they should be. The body's just figuring it all out. Then we're in our peak fertile years and everything should be pretty stable. And if it's not, then there's reasons that it's not. But things are more robust. They're more stable. You've got a bit more flexibility. You can burn the candle at both ends a little. You can get away with more. Perimenopause, we know the decline starts from around the age of 35. No one get upset if you're 35. It's just what happens. And we start to come down the other side. And so, again, our hormones aren't as robust. They're more temperamental. And we have little tiny fluctuations over many, 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 many years that happen. And what changes this little fluctuation is cortisol. Then we see big fluctuations. So then we're like, I got PMS. I feel depressed. I feel great. I feel crap. That's just reflective of stress levels. So again, if that's the second thing that you hear, I would say that we both agree on is managing cortisol becomes your priority, which means you're looking after sleep. You're looking after your body. You're exercising. No one's going to walk away and go, oh, wow, they told us to exercise and sleep. That was the best event ever. But you're not doing it. So we have to say it because I know patients aren't doing it.
And
right?
I would say, HRT is not for everybody. Natural supplements isn't for everybody, but pretty well sleeping and exercise is for everyone.
I knew I went to bed at 8:30 for a reason.
Yes.
But
but
everyone in
it's also
Queensland does
easier
that.
for you guys to go to bed earlier because as you'll notice tonight, it's longer here. So it's actually your melatonin, you're tired later in Melbourne.
Yep.
If you go further south, you're tired even further, even later. And that's just environmental. So it's also playing into the environment that you live in.
Also, nothing's open past 7 o'clock
There you
in
go.
Queensland.
Yeah, well, there's that too.
What, are things open here past 7 o'clock?
Yes.
We can go out after if you want.
Dinner after this at 9 p.m. It can happen. No, what upsets me, I think, too, I listened to 2 podcasts recently on this topic, been doing a lot of research, and 2 very well-respected experts say 2 very different things. And it drives me insane because it's like one saying fast, don't eat until this time. The other one saying women in this situation need to eat more. Which one do we actually do? What do we listen to? How do we know what's going to serve us? Because there's so much information out there. Instagram is flooded. The online is flooded. It's just completely flooded. Your friends have their own opinions as well. Who do we listen to? And I bet you're going to say ourselves.
Well, you're not wrong at all. I completely agree. First thing I would say is any expert that you're listening to, the first thing I would want to know is how many people have you actually sat with? How many papers have you read as opposed to how many people have you sat in front of? I can say, and Meah can say, I've sat in front of 25,000 women in my career. I feel like based on that, doesn't matter what research you show me, I will always come back to anecdotal evidence for me. As a practitioner, if I'm not listening to the patient, then I'm out of touch, right? So you can show me anything. You can make anything make sense on paper. You can go and say, I want this study to give you this outcome, and if there's enough money involved in that study, you're going to get that outcome, right? True. So to your point, I think that I've gone through iterations and I've gone through iterations with patients. If you are suffering from hormonal imbalances or some type of illness, I don't personally think you can recover when intermittent fasting for women. I think you need to be eating regularly to get to a point where you are more robust. I do think everyone benefits from a prolonged fast once a year, twice a year. I think that for the benefit of autophagy is very important. But in your 30s, you probably can intermittent fast and you'll be completely fine. And also, this research that we have is so new for women. We're only just figuring this out because the research has been done on men. And so everything that we've been doing as women has been based on the research for men. That's why we're here.
So I'll tell you a little story about my upbringing and fasting. So I'm no stranger to it. Whenever we were sick, my sister and I were put on a 3-day fast. First day water, second day maybe some juice if we were showing signs of getting better. So that's like a sore throat, a flu, whatever. I sprained my ankle. Oh, here's a compress. You need to fast. So anytime I had a fever, it was fasting. So I'm no stranger to fasting. And it was something that I didn't do for a long time. And then I layered it back in with some intermittent fasting with like when I watched the Michael Mosley Eat Fast and Live Longer. I don't know if anybody's seen that. But it was like, oh, okay, cool. This stuff that I was doing when I was a kid has been shown scientifically to be really helpful for our bodies. Great. I'm going to start doing that again. So I started doing the 5-2 pattern over like 6 months and it was real. Like I felt great for it. And then I started like a 16-8 eating window and doing that regularly and not really feeling the same benefits. And then I came across, I don't know if anybody's watched Dr. Mindy Peltz's work on YouTube, but it's very, very interesting about how to fast for women especially and understanding how our hormones are influencing what's happening with our metabolism and what we can do in terms of different styles of fasting for our hormonal picture. So it might be if you're having a cycle, really helpful to do a prolonged 48-hour fast like after your period finishes when your hormones are low and at baseline. And that is something that I've been implementing for the last 3 months and feeling good with it. It's not easy per se, but the results are worth it. And one huge factor for your hormonal health is insulin resistance and carrying too much weight. And so fasting can, for some people, be really helpful at improving your insulin sensitivity, losing a little bit of stored fat, and then getting your body working more efficiently, getting your metabolism working more efficiently. And that can work in with your hormones. So it's not like a all or nothing thing.
It's a timing, like it's a timing in your cycle.
Yeah, it's a timing thing, timing in your cycle, timing in your hormonal stage too, because if you're, having a regular cycle compared and you're still perimenopausal, like in that age bracket in your 40s, or if you're 49 and not having a regular cycle, your hormone picture is quite different. And so understanding when's best and what type of fasting to do is important for you as an individual.
Intuitive fasting. I like that.
Or talk to a
I want to put
professional about it.
Dr. Mindy Peltz and Stacey Sims in a room and just lock them in there and see what happens.
Find it out. There you go.
Because they both have very different opinions.
Yeah, and again, two very well respected
But
experts.
I think also, you can try things and you can see what happens and you can see what resonates for you and where you feel good and where you don't feel good. Up until having COVID and then long COVID, which some people would argue is not a thing, but I was sick for a very long time, I was fasting. And then I realised I wasn't getting better. And then that was one of the things I did. I started eating more regularly and then really quickly got better. And that's what I've based that on as well. So, we're all different and that's hard to hear. But really, at the end of the day, you're in charge of you. And we give our power away to our practitioners and our providers, our family, whoever else wants to listen, when actually sometimes just going inward, trying things on, listening and seeing what your body does is actually going to be the best thing. You don't have to broadcast. In fact, you shouldn't. You shouldn't be talking about it. I think it's good to have conversations with people that understand it. And I think we should be talking about how we feel. But in terms of anything that you think is a bit outside of the mould, I don't think you need to actually broadcast that until you spent time doing it.
That's a really, really good point, actually. All right. So who here, just show of hands, who has teenagers at the moment? And who keep your hand up. The other hand up if you are also experiencing perimenopausal or menopausal symptom. Yeah, shit. So is this some type of stupid joke that this happens at the same time, that we have hormonal teenagers and we are going through the exact same thing at the same time? And I think the main issue that we're all having, and what I'm talking to everyone about, is the rage at this point. So I want to talk about the extreme rage that we're feeling and just the lack of giving a shit when we're being rageful, just not caring about it. So I feel like for me and a lot of my friends who I speak to, we really want to address that thing, because that doesn't feel like us, and we don't feel like ourselves anymore when we're acting in this way. What can we do naturally apart from sleep and poo? What can we do for ourselves to just chill out a little bit?
I think you'd firstly need to figure out, do you feel rage in the lead up to the period? Is it worse?
Yes.
Are we looking at
Yes.
a hormone discrepancy or imbalance? That's the first thing, because anything that's cyclic becomes something we can generally say it's hormonal.
Yeah.
Or is it just all the time? And I've got, look, so many things to say about this, but I think if you don't feel like you, right? I can tell a story. I remember several months ago, I'm a very upbeat person. I'm generally I'm that annoying person that you don't want to go on holidays with, because I spring out of bed and I'm like, hi, how was your sleep? And, most people are like, please don't talk to me until I've had a cup of coffee and at least a shower. I just literally am not that person. So I guess that's kind of annoying. But I remember several months ago lying on my bed one morning and just thinking, is this it? I've never had depression. I can't say that I can relate to that. But I remember lying there just thinking, I don't like this. This is just not me. And I don't really know what to do with this. I actually don't know. And so I kind of went on a little bit of a path of self-discovery and testing things out and trying things on. And I like to get feedback, and that's why I wear an Oura ring, because I can see what my body's doing. But what was very interesting was there was no reason to feel like that. B, maybe it was because we'd just come back from Europe and that's depressing to come home again. We weren't actually. It was actually one of those trips that I was like, I'm excited to be here and I'm actually excited to go home. I like my children. I like my husband. I think we're okay. We're in a good spot. No one hates each other. But so there was not really a reason. But I had looked at my Oura ring and I'd seen for the 3 cycles in a row, I had really low temperatures, which would indicate relatively lower hormones than what I was used to. And that to me spoke. I was like, okay, this is all adding up right now. My hormones are doing something weird and I don't like it. And so I did a few things. I've experimented with weight training, really upping weight training, really dialing in my diet. You're not going to want to hear this. Really sleeping better, all the things that Meah's just mentioned, but another level, another more than I've ever had to do before. And if I showed you what that looked like on my Oura ring, I look like I did when I was 25, according to my Oura ring. And so I was like, I'm at a point where things are temperamental. I need to use the feedback of my last menstrual cycle to tell me what to do for this next menstrual cycle. Instead of me looking back or looking at the last 6 months or 1 year or 2 years as we've been used to and looking at our health, I have to look back every month right now. And if I do that, I feel better. And if I feel better, then I'm nicer to everyone else. I'm not having rage or low moments. I'm just generally balanced, out of the ordinary. So I really think that we have to put in work right now. Yeah. And that really sucks because we're busy.
Easy, quick fix, really.
No, but I really do think you have to look at the feedback. You have to understand what that looks like and use that to help you shape what the next month looks like. Because if it's bad enough, you're going to want to do that anyway. And for me, I was like, I don't know what this is, but I don't like it.
I actually diarised it to my kids in their diaries and my husband. Mum's psycho week.
Oh, no.
Be nice or just back away. Just let me win for this week. It's going to be okay after that.
Yeah.
And, since then, the realisations are good. Knowing the data, knowing yourself definitely helps because you're like,
totally.
This too shall pass.
But so also, I'm a health provider. I know what to do, but I've gone and hired someone to help me do it because that's what I do for other people. And in doing that, I've actually taken that off my plate. Someone else to tell me, Nat, you need to eat this. Nat, this is when you're exercising. Nat, this is when you're going to go and have a sauna. Nat, this is what, and oh my goodness, absolute game changer. So, you know, I know not everyone might have the flexibility or the liberty to do that, but I think if you did that and you said, I'm going to do this for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and you just prioritized it to see, I think you'd find that your feedback would tell you that you're onto something.
Yeah,
Do you want to
I
add
agree.
something? Yeah, perfect. So that's extreme rage. Weight gain is another one that comes up a lot. And I think that's a hard one to deal with for a lot of women too, because they're doing the exact same things that they've always done. They're exercising, they're sleeping well, they're doing all the things, but they can't lose that weight. Obviously, Ozempic is new. It's relatively new to the marketplace as a weight loss drug. And so a lot of women are going down that path. I want to have a bit of a conversation around this particular medication as well. It is very beneficial for a lot of people with obesity and heart disease, and has its pros, of course. And I'm sure there's cons with any medication. But let's talk about alternatives to that. Let's talk about the drug in itself, what you think of it for this particular reason for hormonal weight gain. I'd love to hear. Over to you guys.
Well, I think it just goes back to that whole your body's going to change as you progress through perimenopause and menopause. Your metabolism does change and your hormones are a result of that. And so if you can catch the wave before it's like dumping on you and do some things that prioritize reducing insulin resistance for yourself, like, you know, going to the gym, fasting, fiber, cutting down on alcohol is a big one. So alcohol is unfortunately one of the worst things you can do for your hormonal health in peri and
It's funny
menopause.
though, like a lot of people in this age group in their 40s and 50s say, oh, I can't process alcohol as much as I used to. Is it our body's just naturally saying, stop drinking as much?
Probably. But, you know, you'll become more sensitive to it. Your liver is busy dealing with a lot of other hormones. And then when you put alcohol into the mix, your liver says, oh, I've got to prioritize filtering that and dealing with that. And then all of the other hormones go on the back burner and they don't get dealt with properly. So if you can do anything lifestyle wise to, you know, catch that earlier prevention, really reducing the amount of alcohol that you're consuming can make a big difference to your hormonal health and your insulin resistance. Exercising, sleeping, cortisol management also plays a part. Diet, clean that up, also plays a part. And then Ozempic works on a protein called GLP-1, which influences our appetite and our satiety for food. And interestingly enough, bitter foods or bitter herbs also act on that same protein, GLP-1. So, you know, we all get the sweet tooth, right? Eating more sugar, not having these bitter foods in our diet can, you know, be worse, compounding the problem. So naturally you can make a difference by, you know, including some Brussels sprouts or, you know, those bitter green leafy vegetables, or having, you know, just bitter foods in your salad or whatever that looks like for you. And sugar is very addictive and it has this like compounding effect. The more you have, the more you want, and then you're just down that road. But then if you pull the reins back and then start cutting it out, you'll find, oh, actually I don't really, you know, feel like it as much, and your tastes change and your body will really thank you for it.
Yeah, I think we need alternatives because obviously these drugs can be expensive as well. You obviously don't want to be on them forever too. So you need alternatives to go, okay, what happens when I get off? Is it going to be a spiral of a weight gain again? But I really love that concept of getting it before it becomes a problem. That prevention is always the key, isn't it? Is like, let's join the gym now, go hard, get really fit, get really strong.
And I would just say that it's never too late. Like, even if you're not in the prevention stage, even if you're in the thick of it and you're like, oh, I can't do anything about it now, just start. It's fine. Like, everybody's at different phases. It will all help.
I do want to come back to the other, well, we know that actually the most protective thing that we can do for our health and longevity is exercise. And that is actually weight training type of exercise. So when it comes to the point of Ozempic, I think if somebody's overweight and obese, it can be a great tool to get them to a point where, because they're not at the gym, they can't do that at that point in time. Get them to a point where they can actually start to do that, and then help to transition them off and kind of like switch it over. But even, I just want to raise this point, I like to always ask questions, as we know, and I went on to ChatGPT the other day because I knew, and I don't know how long this will be for because I think this will be shut down at some point, but I went in and I said, if I was a herbalist and I wanted to help my audience understand how I can help them not need HRT, what would I tell them? Now, I knew what the answer was, but I wanted to see what it would spit out. I hope I know what the answer was. Anyway, so it spat out exactly what I was saying. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Like, this is great. I know, right? I was like, oh, excellent. Okay. So that was interesting. It was more the fact that that's what it spat out. That's what I was more interested in, right? Then I said, knowing this, what is the most protective thing that you can do? What is there anything more protective than HRT for our hormones long term? And it said exercise is without doubt the most protective thing that we can do. So we actually don't have an excuse. We need to be moving our body for our bone health, for our muscle health. Muscle is the hormone of, the organ of longevity, for our brain health. For there's nothing that won't help with. But we like to think we can outsmart it. So I do think Ozempic has a place, but it has a place for very few people. And I think there's a lot of people using it because they're not actually prioritising the most protective thing being movement.
What type of movement? So you said like heavy weightlifting. What does that mean?
You need to exercise a muscle till it's exhausted pretty much to get the benefit. So that would be being in the gym and doing several reps of whatever a movement is until you can't do it anymore. That's the point of exhaustion, where we actually, because what we're doing is we're actually damaging the muscle to repair itself. That's the process.
Asking for a friend, reformer Pilates, does that count as?
I mean, I believe it does, but you've got to push yourself, don't you? I mean, I don't know about you. You can do Pilates and you can do Pilates.
Yeah,
I can go in and go, I did Pilates today. I didn't really do much, but I look good. I can actually go in and have a session where I really do Pilates. I think it's what you're doing in there.
Yeah. This is the time pretty much to invest into our
I think
health.
so. I really think so. And there's always shortcuts and little things that we can do. And whether it's not a this or that. I'm not here. I sit with patients every day, and I'm sure Meah does too, that are using Ozempic, that are on HRT, that are on birth control. My job is not to judge. I don't judge at all. You do you. A lot of them don't want to be taking it. A lot of them are feeling awful at the same time. And I will always work with what's in front of me. So I don't want anyone to feel judged at all, right? We'll always meet you where you're at, and it's what do you want to do? And also, how do you feel at the end of the day? Like if you're on any medication and you feel crap, there's part of it that's not working. So we either fill in some gaps or we look at how we transition somebody off, usually with the support of their doctor, which, you've got to know what to look for and know how to get them to ask the right questions. But you really want to be on the lowest to no dose of any medication without symptoms at the end of the day.
Agreed. Yeah. I want to throw out to you guys, because I know everyone's going to have their own burning questions, and this is the opportunity. We've got these guys here. They usually cost a lot of money to go and see, unfortunately. Who has a question here that they would like to be brave enough to ask? And you know what? It is being recorded, but we can remove it if we need to.
Okay. For someone who struggles with Hashimoto's disease and perimenopause, how do you decipher the difference in the symptoms? Because very often there could be a correlation between battling Hashimoto's and battling perimenopause.
I personally would start with the thyroid first and then see what you're left with. So really dial in managing and treating the Hashimoto's and then see what's left. But I would say that probably half, if not more, of your symptoms would improve in doing that anyway.
And the naturopathic principle is the OAT axis, which is the ovary, adrenal, thyroid connection. They're all interrelated, and one has a knock-on effect to the other. So if your thyroid's not great, it's going to impact your ovarian hormones, and then and your adrenal hormones as well. It's all connected. So it doesn't matter like where you start because they're related, but absolutely agree. The thyroid, if that's your main priority, if that's something that you've been dealing with for a long time as well, then you've got to get that right because everything else will be built upon that. Your thyroid is so important for your overall health. It sets the rhythm for your body. Everything is impacted by your thyroid hormones, head to toe, top to bottom, inside and out.
Thank you.
Amazing. Has anyone else got a question? I know you all do. Courtney.
Thank you. Mine's unrelated to women, but more related to children. I had an incident recently with my lovely daughter living in the area. Everyone knows it's a big basketball community around here. And we went to P3, which is a recovery lounge, after a big day of a basketball tournament. And we went into the cold baths, and having two little girls, there was a bit of a competition who can stay in the longest in this ice bath and whatever we were doing. And then that after we left, my daughter had an SVT episode with her heart. And it just got me thinking in my head, you know, how far away are we in the sense of legislation for children walking into these sorts of places, and just your thoughts and perspectives on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to raise. We're probably not the right people to, or I'm not the right person to, comment per se on it. But I think you raise a really good point. There does need to be some boundaries around what's happening in those spaces because it is a really emerging therapy, hydrotherapy, and a lot of people are trying it out and feeling great for it. But again, it's not for everyone.
I was listening to something the other day, and I don't know where I heard this, but they were saying that men benefit greatly from being in like very low temperatures, like 4 degrees. Women only need to go in something as cold as 15 degrees to get the same benefits.
I heard that.
Yeah, was it? There. And so that I can't go in ice baths. I mean, it also goes against Chinese medicine principles, but it takes me so long to recover, and so I just don't think it's a blanket thing that everyone. It depends on your constitution. Depends. I have low blood pressure. There's many reasons why it doesn't actually work for me. It takes so long for my heart rate to return to normal. So to your point, I think we actually need to understand ourselves a little bit better. But it's nice to know also as women we get the same benefits. Even for things like, it showed research with hot flushes and menopause, 15 degrees is around what a woman needs to actually get the benefits of a cold plunge.
I kept saying that to my husband. He's a wannabe biohacker and he sets his ice bath to 0 degrees.
Oh my heavens.
And he sits in it for 3 minutes
Yeah,
and then
nah, I can't do
immersed
it.
for 1 minute. So he thinks he's excellent and he's like never going to age. And it's
Well, he
awesome.
probably will be fine because he's a man. But you
Correct.
shouldn't
and
be doing
I kept saying, I can do that
Yes.
at like 12 degrees.
Yes.
And when I heard that, I was like, I knew it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
intuitively knew that.
There you go.
I've got a question while you're thinking of your next question. What about soy milk for estrogen? That whole discussion, like I've heard that recently in a podcast too, about elevating our estrogen levels by drinking soy milk. Is that like a complete no, or is that what's your take on that?
You can go first.
I don't think it's ever a complete no, but I think from a nutritional perspective, it's good to always have a variety. So if you're, can't tolerate cow's milk and dairy, then you're looking for milk alternatives, then, absolutely you could have soy, and you could probably also have almond milk and oat milk and coconut milk and hazelnut milk and tiger nut milk and all the different milks there are these days. I think doing the one thing in excess is never a good thing. So just mix it up. And foods can act on your hormones. Absolutely they can. So soy does have a phytoestrogen effect, as does flax seeds and pumpkin seeds. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can modulate and help the body, but it's not for everyone, and don't do it in excess.
I think that's what the issue is. Soy became a replacement for so many things. People ended up having a lot of soy. Soy, we went through the phase of soy meat, soy milk. It was in our bread. It was in our sauces. It was in so many things. And it's often GMO as well. So there's a lot of parts to that. If a patient is estrogen dominant, and how do you know if you're estrogen dominant? I would say as a general rule, you'll have a heavier period as opposed to someone that doesn't have a lot of estrogen, you'll have a lighter period. That's always a good gauge to kind of figure out. And what's a heavy period? I would say is changing a pad or tampon more than every 4 hours. If you're using a cup, that's different. So as a general rule, if you are bleeding heavily and you are having a lot of soy, simply reducing that can have a pretty big impact. But for the person that is estrogen deficient, and often we see this with someone that's had a history of an eating disorder, athlete, somebody whose gut health isn't that great, that they can have lower hormones in general, you can get away with a little bit more soy. But it's also designed to be eaten. If you think about what a soybean is or what soy is, it's not designed to be consumed at every meal. And I think that this is probably somewhere where Meah and I won't agree, is that I have actually issues with all of the milks. I try and steer people back. If they can tolerate dairy, I try and steer them back to dairy.
No, I agree.
Good.
No, she agrees. I've done every milk and I'm back to dairy.
Can I tell you, though, the number of people that are on almond milk with thyroid issues can be a really big problem because a lot of people can't tolerate it, or it's just creating a perpetual state of inflammation in the body. So, and that's just one example. But I try and steer people back to, and not a lot of it either. You don't need a lot.
Yeah, that's right. And like when you look on an almond milk packet, there's 2%.
How many almonds go into a cup of milk? I want to know.
Almonds
yeah, that's crazy.
in the almond
And also
milk.
the seed oils that they put in the alternate milks is pretty bad, like canola oil and, those.
So unless you're making your own, you're not really winning. Okay, any other questions over here? Helen, Jodie's coming with the mic now. Yeah, I know.
I'm representing many of the older generation with the postmenopausal.
But you look 40. This is
So I too listen to Stephen Bartlett and the many women on postmenopausal or menopausal options and fasting. And I speak for many of the women here that a lot of us do the fasting and we find it's very beneficial. I've also heard about doing the extra weights and maintaining the muscle tone. What do you think about taking testosterone? Because they're recommending it for both men and women these days, definitely in our age group. And the other thing is, and I'll bring it up because I think it's relevant to everyone, I also work for a doctor, there's definitely the position of, dryness of, aging with sexuality and things like that, and that really needs to be covered too.
Yeah, I agree. I think, firstly, we should have more testosterone when we are in our postmenopausal years, as much as, or if not more, than what we've ever had. So if it's deficient, you're not going to feel very well. Again, I find it often competes or is proportionate to stress levels, and cortisol being another big factor. One of the ways we do help to support healthy testosterone is through the weight, like lifting weights. And if that's not working and you're still not feeling great and you looked at all of those other things, that's when I think hormone therapy might be something that you can absolutely consider. I think it still comes down to case by case. Again, I'll come back to we're not saying you should do this or you should do that. It's just in our experience, this is what we've seen. And I think the more that we can take care of ourselves, the better we feel. And that's not revolutionary by any means. But again, we're not doing it. And so many women are suffering unnecessarily. And we put everybody else first. We're often on the bottom of the pile. We'll make the excuse why we can't do it because we have to, for whatever reason. And unfortunately, we're the ones that are suffering as a result of that, and we're the ones that are trying to care for everybody. So I think we have to be very clear with our loved ones. I think we have to ask for what we need. We need to help our partners understand why we do things. I think it's the one thing we haven't touched on, I really am very, very passionate about, is setting the example for our children and our teenagers and then our daughters and whoever that is, because monkey see, monkey do. And I think that our kids are pretty lucky that that they're going to have a different experience than what we had. But I do think that we do have to invest in those things. So I don't think you're wrong. I don't think if you're still feeling not like yourself and you're doing all of those things, that's where the extras come. But if you're not doing those things and you're only looking at hormone therapy, I think you'll find that a lot of those symptoms won't necessarily go away because they're not just testosterone related, they're often cortisol related.
Yeah, perfectly answered. I hope you feel satisfied with it. I think it's great that you mentioned being an example for your kids too. I think it's also really important and I'm recording this tonight, I'm going to share it on the podcast, that men listen to this too, because they need to know why the women in their lives, whether they're their sisters, their mums, their wives, whoever they are changing, are going in.
But how are they ever going to know if you're not having a conversation? Like, they're not. I know, even like when I gave birth to my daughter, I expected my husband to know what to do. How stupid was I? Why would he? Like, why would he know above? Or firstly, no one knows what they're doing the first time around, maybe not even the second time around, but I expected him to know what to do, and he didn't. And then coming back for the second child, I was like, okay, just so you know, I really love you, but you were totally useless. I see why people have midwives and doulas and support, because how were you to know? But asking, like, when's the last time you sat down and said to your partner, this is actually what I need. Like, this is what's happening. This is what I understand to be what's happening. I need you, or I need you to understand, or this is the things that I need. We don't do that. But asking for what we need, I think that that's probably one of the most important things that we can do, because they're not going to know. How would they?
Yeah.
And I think, can we talk about sex?
No.
Because I think having that understanding that women are changing through this transitional period of perimenopause and menopause, like, guys are just linear. They're just like, yep, this is how it's always going to be.
This will get their attention too.
And if you don't say that, okay, well, I am uncomfortable, or I'm not feeling this, or my libido's low, or it's not about our relationship, or my body's changing, I don't feel sexy anymore, whatever it might be, if you're not having that conversation and keeping it to yourself, then, your sex life will suffer. And so meeting in the middle where you can both still enjoy a healthy, loving relationship through those different phases is important. And your hormones play a part. Nobody likes being dry vaginally and having uncomfortable sex, but there's definitely ways that you can have a still healthy, enjoyable sex life through menopause and beyond.
I want to know, what do we do with a dry vagina?
I think also
You go words, guys.
You've just got the YouTube cover for this. It's like, men want more sex, do this. You're welcome.
Thank you, Nat. And that's why you go viral.
Easy. I think it's important to talk about libido, because I can't tell you how many women will say to me, I don't have a libido. And a couple things to that. No libido and not initiating intimacy are not the same thing. So just because you're not initiating it doesn't mean you don't have a libido. I think it's the last thing on the mind for a lot of us, and that's really normal. If you, in the moment of being intimate with your partner, feel comfortable, relaxed, you're having a nice time, then that's not low libido. That's just you being busy and prioritizing everything else. It's like anything else. We actually have to carve out time to be intimate with our partners to have a healthy relationship. So that's one thing. You're never going to be like you were when you first met and you were like, you would, go in the closet and have a nice time. You're not going to do that anymore. It's from so many reasons. And if you are, power to you.
But why are women like that when they have new partners at this age?
Because it's different. The hormones that you're releasing are different. The way you're feeling is different. You're getting to learn each other. That's actually part of how your pheromones work, how you connect to somebody. Eventually, you go through iterations of a relationship. You can find a woman that's perimenopausal that finds a new partner, and all of a sudden her libido's back from wherever it went.
And her vagina's no longer dry.
Correct, because she's releasing different hormones. But to that point also, I think that this is where looking at serotonin and dopamine is very important. And she just came over there. I got so excited. This is where I think that it's important to look at. Also, it ties back to there's so many facets to this conversation, honestly. If you look at hormone regulation, like I said, serotonin, dopamine, like that's got nothing necessarily to do with your sex hormones. That's actually gut health and all sorts of other things. So there's a lot of factors here. But also, to your point, you can use things to help you as well.
And if that is hormone therapy vaginally, then, power to you. Just, I would say it's not a forever thing, right? So just ensure that you're using it appropriately when you need it. But, there are some great natural lubes out there. The power of foreplay. And, the strength in your relationship can be so sexy when you've got love, respect, trust, and you're connecting on a variety of levels that's not just about physically connecting as well. So I think, we're not here to talk about how to improve your relationships, but, doing the things you can do personally to make sure that you're okay, your hormones are good, and that you're exploring things and not in the same rut of doing what you've always done, I think can be helpful.
Has anyone else got a question?
Okay, so I'm taking us away from the subject of sex, given I'm not getting any.
Well, maybe you need to
So I figure that's quite relevant, and I'm postmenopausal.
This row is naughty.
But I hear over and over again about cortisol levels and sleep. Okay, so I will try and go to sleep at 8 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night. I still wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning. So everybody says, get more sleep. I'd just like to know how.
So this is interesting. I can talk about sleep all day long. I had this amazing podcast episode that I created about sleep, and it went missing off. It just went missing off every platform. I was like, this is so weird. I just found it again, and we released it today. Anyway, but here's what I'll give you the rundown on that. So, from a Chinese medicine perspective, we can look at different organs and the energy of the organs peaking at certain times. And the time of the liver is between 1 and 3. So often people will wake between 1 and 3. And it can be reflective of the liver. And it can either be reflective of the liver from a physical sense, or it can be reflective of the liver from a more emotional sense. So we look at the organs being partially physical and partially emotional. So the emotion of the liver is anger and resentment. And I don't know if that resonates, but it's something to think about. So what I do with my patients is I get them to do a practice, because what's the first thing that you do when you wake up at 2 o'clock?
I generally wake up at 3.
Right, 3, yes. Okay, so what's the first thing that you do?
I get up and I exercise.
Wow. So we're going to try, but do you feel frustrated?
No, because I've been waking up at 3 a.m. for the
a long
last
time.
65 years.
Right, right. Well, here's something that we could try on, and it may or may not be relevant, but what I get patients to do, because most of us when we wake are frustrated. We're like, what the hell? Tomorrow's going to be terrible. I'm not going to sleep enough. I'm trying to solve the world's problems, and it's not a nice experience. So the first thing I get patients to do is say, thank you for waking me up. Your body, I actually believe our bodies know what they need all the time, and they're trying to tell us, and whether we can listen or not. So I say, get people to say, thank you for waking me. What is it that I need to know? What is it? Because on a subconscious level, your body's taken you from an unconscious state in your subconscious to a waking state. It knows that potentially there's something it wants you to solve. And so I will always say to patients, just be curious. If there's something on your mind, or something from 65 years ago, I hope not, something on your mind or something that needs to be resolved, and use the time. Your body's gone, is now a good time? Because there's nothing else going on, so let's go. And be curious as to what that might be. And then I always say to patients, you only allow yourself half an hour. You can have half an hour, and if you haven't processed it, then you are going to say, okay, that's enough now. I've given you half an hour. This has not been fun, but thank you, whatever. And give yourself, this is very woo, but we're going to go here. Give yourself permission to solve it in a dream. You say, I can't solve this logically. I give you permission to solve it in my subconscious, in my dream, rearrange it, do whatever you need to do. And you'll be very amazed at what happens. Firstly, you'll know that it's happening, but you won't really know. And you'll wake up the next morning again, you'll be like, something feels different. I don't know what that dream was about. I don't remember it, but something feels different. And what I can guarantee you with patients that I get them to do this, if they keep doing it, they stop waking. After a certain amount of time, they stop waking. And this was something that I started doing, not because I had read it, not because I'd learnt about it. It was just something that one day came to me. I was like, I'm curious about this, and I started doing it. And then somewhere I found the research on it, and I was like, holy crap. I didn't even realise that this was actually something. I just thought I made it up. But clearly I'm connected to something out there. And so now when I wake, I actually get so excited because I'm like, my body knows exactly what it needs. What is it that we've got to solve today? Like,
Do you think it'd still be excited if it was 65 years in?
No, I wasn't. But I
Thank
didn't
you.
sleep. But I didn't sleep for a period of 3 years, and over those 3 years
Yeah.
is when I actually
It is very
started to do
frustrating.
this. And especially if you're used to sleeping, and then you don't, it's just the most lonely, awful feeling. And I know there's patients here that have done this and will vouch for it. But I can honestly say, try it on, and don't be hard about it. Just be curious as to if you are waking. Thank you, body. What is it that we need to work through? The first few times it's probably going to suck, by the way. You probably got some stuff that you really do need to resolve that you don't want to face. But the more you do it, the more that your body will actually be able to process those thoughts and feelings.
So I'd add to that to ask yourself, what are you doing through the day? Because I think that's what makes the biggest difference to the quality of sleep that you're having at night. So things like, how much caffeine are you consuming? What time of the day are you consuming it? When are you eating? When are you exercising? What type of exercise are you doing? What's your cortisol levels like? Are they spiking in the middle of the night when your melatonin should be up? Are your circadian rhythms out? If you're been waking at 3 a.m. in the morning for 65 years, your body is trained to do that. You're not going to untrain that. That's you. So please get some sleep at other times. Go to bed earlier, have a nap, do those things. Like, try to get your sleep in where you can. And, cortisol will spike with exercise. It's just what happens. And so don't exercise at night or in the afternoons. If you want to go for a walk, beautiful. If you want to do a nice calm yoga class, beautiful. But don't go to the gym. Don't do a spin class. Don't do something up because you won't sleep well. Your cortisol has to have time to come down and for your melatonin to kick in.
I'm just curious, do you wake up for the day at 3?
Yes.
And then you're up?
I'm up.
And then when do you go back to bed?
I go to bed somewhere between 8 and 10.
And are you feeling fatigued during the day?
Sometimes, yeah.
Is that enough sleep? 8, 9, 10? That's what I used to always do.
I've averaged it out. I generally get about 4.5 hours sleep a night.
Yeah.
And do you nap?
No, I can't.
Can't nap? I would just aim to go to bed like maybe an hour earlier. Typically, women actually need 9 hours of sleep.
What about, do you meditate?
No.
What about, sitting in meditation, I've become the expert. This always happens at the end of interviews. No.
Love it. You've learnt so much.
I think meditation ignites a lot of rest as well, and it's not the same as sleep, but it can really benefit us in a way. Like an hour of meditation to me can really charge me like I've had 4 hours of sleep. Even 20 minutes of meditation, or just, it's different to lying down and trying to sleep. You're obviously sitting upright, but your body is, and your whole person is getting a rest. And so whether it's sleeping or not, that might be a great way to integrate, a great thing to integrate even before bed too, to just drop you down into that more restful state. Has anyone else got a question? We've got one at the back here.
Thank you. Quick question. A GP recently told me that I had to take HRT for breast cancer prevention. What are your thoughts on that?
The most protective thing you can do is exercise against breast
great.
cancer as well. That's what the research is saying. So,
Great.
Again, if you're not doing anything else, then it might be the best thing you can do. That's what we're not here to talk about, though. We're talking about all the other things that you can do to help to support your body that will be even more protective in the long run. That is a very common thing, though.
And give up alcohol. If you can do those two things, give up alcohol and exercise, your risk for breast cancer really just plummets.
In your goodie bags is some MSM as well, which is so amazing for liver detoxification and support. And if you were to have alcohol, like everyone should have half a teaspoon of that when they get home tonight if they've had a drink. It will help with lots of things, but one thing it will help is your liver to detoxify the alcohol.
Amazing. Thank you. So helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming here tonight. I think the biggest takeaway for me was that I think we really need to empower ourselves, keep all of the things that we have control of in check, exercise, try and rest, try and look after our mental health, have the conversations that need to be had with the loved ones around us so that they understand that we are changing and adapting and evolving, really. We are becoming a new version of ourselves. I do ask everyone on my podcast, what is one thing that you once heard that you could not unhear? You can keep it relevant to the topic if you like, or you can just go rogue and tell us something that you once heard that you couldn't unhear. But it's those life aha moments that I really want you to share with everyone today to wrap up.
I would say that menopause is not a disease. It's not something that needs to be fixed. It's a natural process. So I heard that on a podcast and that was like, yep, 100%. Don't need to treat this like a disease. Every woman goes through it. It's okay. You don't need to make yourself wrong or sick or, it's just part of life.
Yep, agreed. And just quickly, has anyone gone through menopause and feeling absolutely fucking fantastic right now? Yes,
Yes.
So there is an amazing life that awaits on the other side of all of this as well.
Yay.
Nat, what's your things you can't unhear moment?
I think it's we can never go back and get what we had 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but what we can do is actually really invest in our health now to make sure that we're the best version of ourselves going forward. So it's about maintenance. It's about commitment. And I know that feels sometimes like a lot, but it's the small things that really add up. So committing to one thing, but we can't go back. But to me, if I want to live my best life moving from now until forever, then it's being committed to maintaining what I've got.
Yes. Thank you so much. Please help me give these lovely ladies a round of applause.
Thanks for listening to the show. What did you think? And what did you feel? Let us know by leaving me a message on the Things You Can't Unhear Instagram community page. And if you can, give us some ratings love on your favourite listening platform.